Hello and welcome back to Downforce Debrief, where this week we are discussing the Austrian Grand Prix, including the epic battle between the McLarens, Gabriel Bortoleto's unbelievable weekend, and lots of different contract situations. But start on McLaren. As a now very new Piastri fan, I was absolutely loving it at the start of the race. Absolutely giving it to Lando, full on attacking. There was several times I was like, he's got him. Really, really good battle. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you to McLaren for allowing that battle to happen. But I got to be honest, even a self-confessed big old Piastri fan, when he did that send that very, very nearly took them both out of the race, I was like, no, that was too much. That was just over the line. Against your teammate, that was way too close. Normally, they're fairly respectful. Piastri pushes the limits a little bit like he did in Monza, but normally, we haven't really had a crash between them, but that was, oh my God, so close. What did you think about it, GB?
I agree. And it was really refreshing to see McLaren let their drivers fight that hard. Obviously, they kind of had to step in and be like, right, Oscar, that's over the limit for us. You can't do that again. So they did kind of give him a firm talking to after that, which I think is completely fair enough. We've seen a lot of teams in past generations, going back to like Mercedes and Red Bull and many years before, where they just don't allow their drivers to properly go at it fighting for the win. So I think McLaren and Austria was a perfect example of a race that had such a dominant car and yet gave us such a fun race just because they were allowed to go racing. And of course, don't forget, they're both very good drivers that are of a similar ability, so that helps too. But yeah, I was a bit, a bit scared when Piastri locked up, thinking that there might be some kind of incident at turn 4. But ultimately, I thought it was really good driving from both of them. I think Piastri said in his post-race interview that he perhaps could have approached that phase of the race a bit differently, which I was quite interested in. I don't know what he was really alluding to, whether he thought he should be more aggressive in that situation or not. But I actually thought he was kind of as aggressive as he could be, while also respecting the fact that it's his teammate and not a different, a Verstappen, for example, in a different team. So, yeah, very impressed with the defense from Lando. Don't forget, we came off the back of a race at Canada where he made a horrible mistake and completely misjudged out with his teammates. So, I think for his confidence, that should hopefully do wonders for him. I thought he managed it really well, and especially after that, later into the race, he kind of just managed the gap, managed the situation, and hats off to Lando.
As you can hear, GB is absolutely obsessed with sounding like a robot at the moment. He's, you can tell he's popped some filters on. That's because he's too scared to turn his aircon off, chat. He's reached that level of middle class now that he's willing to sound like a robot for it. So apologies for that. It's not as good as it normally is, but GB can't handle 28-degree temperature. So, but yeah, specifically on the McLaren battle, I think there was quite a few flashpoints there. There was into turn 1 where Lando made quite a big mistake actually on the final corner into the gravel, really slow. Oh, GB's braving. He's turning off the aircon. There he is.
We'll try it.
We'll have to be quick before GB just looks like a roast chicken. So Lando made quite a big mistake in the final corner into the gravel, and then Oscar definitely could have sent it on him, but just chose not to. I guess thinking, I'll get him up into turn 3, which I think with hindsight was definitely a mistake. I think if a free overtake is there, you've got to take it. If he gets you back, sure thing. Don't keep doing it. Don't keep making the same thing because you know how it's going to end. But it's worth a try, I think. So that was maybe a mistake there. There was obviously once that he did briefly take the lead into turn 3, but then Lando got him back. He literally said that, that was thanks to the battles last year with Max. So I learned what to do there. There's a few times he got fairly close into turn 4. In general, as you said, it was a great battle. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. After being disappointed with the previous race, I really enjoyed this race, even though we only had a proper battle. And let's be honest, how many times did they actually get side by side in that battle? Like 3, maybe? Wasn't that much, but they were really close. It was more the tease of oh my God, it keeps you pinned, doesn't it? It's like, is he going to go for here? Is he going to go for there? Oh my God, he's got a better exit. And that really keeps you engaged.
Whereas it was Canada, 11 laps, wasn't it? It was 11 laps of pure tension. You're like, oh my God, is there going to be are they going to collide, or is it finally going to happen? And
exactly.
I was
thinking, is he going to get desperate and go for it?
Yeah. I was thinking if Piastri messes this up, we're going to get a Ferrari 1-2. This is going to be crazy.
God, yeah. It would have been. It would have been a comfortable 1-2 for Ferraris if that happened.
And literally, I don't know about you, but even towards the end, obviously, we had a different dynamic with the traffic and back markers. But Piastri always had better tyres because of the offset strategy that he chose himself. So we never really knew whether that was gonna happen again at the end. And obviously, if it did, Piastri would have the tire advantage. So would he overtake? So it was only really until the last like 2-3 laps that you could see, yeah, he's not going to do this. But I mean, literally, that tension was kind of there throughout the whole race of wondering what's going to happen. And also, as well, if there's a safety car at any point, this is literally going to decide the race because they're that close on strategy and pace as well. So, yeah, it was really, really good. I do want to mention, I want to use this to talk about the circuit, Alex, because I'll be honest, I'm normally a big pessimist going into an Austria race weekend. I mean, we don't typically get good races there. There've been a lot of stinkers over the years. And the start of the race, we mentioned it there with how close the McLarens were. We really need to kind of acknowledge the fact that DRS was more powerful than dirty air. And I don't know how many tracks we've had that so far, but it was way more powerful. I think Lando said it was worth like something like 6 to 8 tenths, whereas like the dirty air when Piastri was behind Lando, you could see even on the same tire length, same tire deg, Piastri could stay within like 5-6 tenths. So a real big kind of like thumbs up, I guess, to the Red Bull ring, because we got a really good race and cars were able to follow, and there were loads of overtakes, not forgetting the McLarens for a second, just across the whole grid. So yeah, I was really, really pleased with it. And honestly, if I was to give that race a rating as a result, I'd probably give it a solid like 7.5 out of 10. And that's with basically no safety car because it was just lap one and just cars doing their own strategy. And I thought it was a really good race.
I agree. And it's completely opposite to last time in Canada, where I think you quite enjoyed it, but I was like, nah, for me, that was a stinker. I didn't enjoy it at all, despite it, being close between the top lot. And yet this race had way bigger gaps. I mean, the Ferraris were 20 seconds back. George Russell was 60 seconds back, and they lapped up to P7. So, like, it was just opposite to Canada. On the face of it, you go, terrible race. But actually, it was really enjoyable. Such a wibble. But yeah, like you said, they were able to follow closely. I think, just stick with McLaren for a moment, though. I think what's really interesting for me is, on paper, again, go back to on paper. We love on paper here. On paper, Lando Norris, really confidence-inspiring weekend, right? Took pole by ginormous margin. Okay, there was that weird lucky yellow flag situation, but was always looking likely to take pole. Great. Got a good start, led the whole race, won the race. Like on paper, you go, look, Lando's back, right? He's figured it out, he's back. But in reality, yeah, okay, qualifying went his way, but the race did go his way, but by a very small margin. To say that he supposedly had an advantage all weekend over Oscar, where was that in the race? Because it didn't exist. He was all over him the entire race. Yes, okay, they went for a different strategy stuff, which with hindsight probably didn't work. I think, honestly, Oscar should have just gone 1 lap longer rather than like 5 laps longer, because clearly that didn't really work for him. But he was all over him. Lando made a couple of mistakes while he was all over him. He was able to send it on him. If I'm Lando, and I don't mean to put him down, although I do that a lot, I'm not trying to do that now. I'm just saying, in theory, it should be really confidence-inspiring. I'm not getting that much confidence from that, because I almost feel like I scraped that win. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't a comfortable win. It's not like we're looking at Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, where Leclerc just pulled away from Hamilton. Hamilton had a good weekend, by the way. He was less than 10 seconds back from Charles at the line, and he seems to do quite well. But, Hamilton was never beating Leclerc in that race. That was a confidence-inspiring weekend for Leclerc. Not so much for Lando. What do you think?
I think 2 reasons why I disagree with that and think Lando can take confidence from it. Reason number 1, the track, as we just said. So you were gaining more time in DRS than you were losing from dirty air. So literally, when at the start, first 11 laps, Piastri, when he was within DRS, he was basically never going away because he had that advantage versus the lack of speed from dirty air. So there was that. Then you can argue, okay, later on in the race when there was that delta deficit, I actually thought Lando managed it quite well. I think Piastri did eventually kind of eat into those gaps, and Lando ended up losing loads of time at a point when, I forget which car it was, but there was a car that boxed and cost him like over a second in Sector 3 alone. And they were kind of ebbing and flowing, because don't forget, Piastri got put in the grass by Colapinto. Crazy move, if you can call it a move. So it was ebbing and flowing. But I think ultimately, reason number 2 is Lando also had wing damage, which his engineer told him towards the end of the race. I want to say it was kind of 3/4 of the way through. It was quite late on, so I actually don't know when the damage occurred. but he must have gone over a curb or done something to the car. Clearly,
Well,
that
he
damaged
went
it.
wide in the final corner, didn't he? But that was just kind of touched the gravel. I don't know. But yeah, you said it could just be a curb somewhere. Fair point. Yeah, because I was going to say, although, if we say the DRS was more powerful than dirty, that's why I was able to stick with him. But he did get free of that by strategy. And yet, Piastri did close him down. I know there was traffic involved, but Piastri did look quicker than him. I mean, literally Lando came over the radio at one point and was like, "I need more pace, help," which I thought was such a that's not going to help with the people who think he's mentally weak, is it? Saying that, but I did quite enjoy it. But yeah, I don't know. I personally wouldn't find that massively confidence inspiring if I'm Lando. But if you're McLaren, it couldn't be more confidence inspiring, could it? It absolutely dominated that race. No one was anywhere near them whatsoever. It's weird though, isn't it? We're seeing such massive fluctuations race to race. It seems to be all down to tyre temp. Mercedes, who were really strong previously, George Russell was a minute off the lead, absolutely nowhere. Red Bull were not as strong. I know, obviously, Max got deleted by a rookie mistake from Antonelli, but, I'm sure they would have maybe still been P3, but they were never going to be able to take it to the McLarens. We're just seeing massive... Honestly, I don't know if I can remember a time in recent memory where we saw swings this big between teams race to race. Sometimes McLaren is only just fastest, if not even maybe just about second fastest. In other races, they're half a second lap faster than everybody else.
I feel like this is following a trend, honestly. I think this has not really changed for a long time now. And George Russell said it in his post-race interview that for the last 2 years, Mercedes have literally been, no pun intended, just a hot and cold car. They one weekend they look incredible where the temperatures are cooler, and as soon as they're at a track where the temperatures are high, like Austria, there's a pretty high. I don't know what the actual temperature was, but it was pretty roasting. They can't perform, and that has been the same for them for a long, long time. Way back when Lewis was there, they just have never got on top of that. And George Russell just kind of shrugged his shoulders and was a bit like, "Well, yes, this is the same problem we've always had." So, and he acknowledged the fact that it is a problem because obviously you think about the Formula One calendar, they try and plan the races at each venue for summertime for the better weather. So there is. Odds are that you are going to get a hotter weather at the track. So we know at the moment McLaren are the best car in hot weather. They clearly love that. They manage their tyres the best and their temperatures. Ferrari do really well in hotter temperatures, hence why we're seeing them way ahead of the grid apart from McLaren. And then Mercedes are nowhere. So it's a bit of a weird one. I'm surprised that Mercedes kind of have never really gotten on top of that. Obviously, it's a fundamental thing with their car, right? But it's quite a strange situation that still 2 years later, they're exactly the same issue. So,
but that's sort of my point, is that you are right. It's because of tyre temperatures. But regardless, it's because of performance. Normally it's because of how much downforce can you put in your car or whatever, how much power can you put in your car. But, this happens to be tyre temperature. But it's still wild that we're seeing this much variation between the teams this late into a rule cycle. Mercedes, okay, fine, maybe they're the outlier, they never managed to get hold of it. But Ferrari are massively up and down. I know they had an upgrade for this race, which seems to have helped them. Maybe that will help them be more consistent. But Red Bull were massively up and down as well. It's they've been the dominant team the last few years, and yet even they. Sometimes they're right on the pace, other times they're just not. It's just the swing, and it is because of tyre temps, but it's still amazing that the teams are that different this late in the rule set, when actually their raw performance, I think, is really, really close. If you take out the tyre temperatures, their raw amount of downforce and drivability, it's not like we've still got a car massively porpoising, or do you know what I mean, or barely looking drivable, not the top four teams at least. So yeah, anyway, but moving on to, obviously we've got to talk about him. Gabriel Bortoleto, my word, what... To be honest, where did that come from? He's looked decent this season, don't get me wrong. But what was that? What the hell? He clearly loves the Red Bull ring, or I know they had an upgrade that maybe just suddenly he can drive the car. Before, maybe he was really struggling with the balance, but qualified 8th in a Sauber. I know that's partly Sauber's upgrade, but his teammate, I was just trying to go with the qualifier result. I haven't got it here, but his teammate qualified. Did he go out in Q1? Am I right on that, GB? Can you remember? Hulkenberg?
Hulkenberg,
Put him on the spot again, haven't I?
As well, actually, but Hulkenberg.
Or GB. He did. He was last place in quali.
Hulkenberg does well in the race.
He does, but Hulkenberg was last place in quali, and then Gabriel Bortoleto was 8th. That's a ridiculous difference to a genuinely decent driver. And then obviously in the race as well, just really, really strong. Just hats off. Well, both to Sauber, because Hulkenberg ultimately then ended up going from last place on the grid all the way up to, was it P9? He finished P9. So that's obviously amazing. So clearly they've built a better car, but Bortoleto in particular, that's unbelievable. Although it is interesting to me that Hulkenberg still almost beat him, even though he's starting from the back of the grid. Like, that's not something you see that in the F1 game. It's not something you really see in real life. When someone starts that far back, it's enough to shaft them, certainly without a safety car. But he almost beat him, which just showed to me the experience of Hulkenberg. And that's why they've got Hulkenberg and not just two Bortoletos, because although he had a great weekend, Hulkenberg still almost beat him. And then one other thing on Bortoleto is the Alonso battle at the end there. I want to talk about that because that was just the perfect example of rookie versus experience. If you swap those cars around, as in the drivers, just swap the drivers, same cars, but swap the drivers, Alonso is definitely beating Bortoleto on track. There's no doubt about it. He's probably even getting a further position. Was it Lawson that was just a little bit in front as well? But he just was just too patient. He was too cautious, too patient, was maybe being too respectful to Alonso, and Alonso beat him, which is unbelievable considering he was catching him by, I don't know what it was. I imagine it was over a second a lap for him to have caught him because he had fresher tyres. I think Alonso did a 1-stop, Bortoleto did a 2-stop. So the fact that Alonso was able to beat him, that just shows, again, just like why you say Hulkenberg, why you sign someone like Alonso, because experience matters. I was actually a bit disappointed that he only came home there in P8.
Can we now agree, Alex, Alonso is not mid?
For one race and one race only, yeah, we can, yeah.
Well, I'll take it. That's something at least. Look, Alonso, I'm really glad you mentioned that battle because this is exactly why Alonso was my driver of the day. There was a point. I don't know if you caught it. It was
you can't just drop that bomb casually. Alonso's your driver of the day.
I'm going to back it up. So there was a point right at the end. I think it was their final lap, and maybe. Yeah, it was their final lap. Obviously, they were a lap down on Lando, but Lando had already passed. Lando was on the final lap. I was going into turn 4, and Alonso looked like he dived bombed Lando. And you'll appreciate this, Alex, because we do this in the F1 game. This is a common method of defending, in this situation where you go for a move down the inside, and it looks like you're going for that overtake, but actually all you're doing is covering off the corner so the car behind cannot. There's no opportunity, there's no gap to attack at all. And Bortoleto was on way fresher tyres, as you already said. So Alonso literally held him off at that point from diving up the inside of Lando on way worse tyres, not intending to get the move on Lando at all, but then just completely covering Bortoleto, then into Sector 2, and that completed the race. There was no further opportunity. And that in particular, when he pulled that off, I was like, that is why you keep a driver like Alonso for so many years on the sport. That's why you sign him. That's why you keep him, because that kind of defending there was so smart. And to do that on tyres, which I think was something stupid, like 31 laps on them or more, because obviously he did the 1-stop. So yeah, it was incredible. And Alonso driver of the day for me. 1-stop in that car as well. P7. Yes.
Nice. I'm just going to remove the Aston Martin branded hat from you there. Just pop that one on the floor.
It's on your shelf at the back, mate.
Yeah, it is. To be fair, I've got one. By your same logic, though, Liam Lawson should be driver of the day because he finished ahead of Alonso. He also did the 1-stop.
Yeah.
He was better, so he didn't need to get involved in those battles because he was just clear. He also beat his teammate handily, except for he's got a more highly rated teammate. Okay, a rookie teammate, but still, more highly rated teammate. He's a rookie himself. So by your logic, Liam Lawson should be driver of the day over Fernando Alonso. So I'm not...
Reason why that's not the case is because, yes, I'd put Lawson as a very close second. Lawson had an unbelievable weekend, also in qualifying as well. He earned that right. I think he has a better car than Alonso at the moment. Personally, I think the V car was ahead of Aston. Secondly, as you said, he was further up the road. Alonso was kind of put in that situation and had to defend. He was, that was where he was, and he also had to manage Lando and Piastri coming through too. And so, therefore, yeah, you could make the argument for Lawson being further ahead, fine. But Alonso was forced to defend against a driver on form on way better tyres and still managed to hold on. So, okay, a rookie. We'll go with that then. Fine.
Don't get me wrong. It's a good drive by Alonso. It was a fantastic defense at the end. Defense. There's no denying that. I just think driver of the day is a little bit lofty. I just think you don't have to give it to Bortoleto. But then how much that was the upgrades? I honestly don't know. There was quite a few good drives there, to be fair. Lando obviously would be a candidate, but for me, making that mistake is a no-go. Oscar would definitely be a candidate, but almost took his teammate out and wasn't able to beat him, so not really. Leclerc, hard to judge, honestly. Seems to do well in the car. Hamilton had a better day than usual, but beaten by a teammate 10 seconds can't be him. George Russell, we've got no real measurement of George Russell. He finished a minute off the pace. Lawson is definitely a candidate. Yeah. Alonso is, I guess, a candidate, but I don't know. I think by the same logic, you've got to give it to Lawson. Bortoleto, obviously, a candidate. Hulkenberg, again, go from last on the grid to P9. There's genuinely a lot of candidates there of people you give it to. I guess if I had to give a driver of the day, it would be Kimi Antonelli. No, I'm joking. Probably Liam Lawson. But by the same logic you gave, I think it's genuinely a press weekend. Also a rookie. Yeah, maybe his car is slightly better than Aston Martin, but is it? I don't know. Aston Martin are certainly a bigger, better funded team than VCarb. Was the last car to not go a lap down? I don't know. Honestly, I think you could throw a towel over all of them in terms of which one you pick the driver of the day.
Let's give Bortoleto his flowers and say Kick Sauber were the team of the weekend, definitely. Because to get double points in that car was very, very impressive.
Yeah, there's no doubt. So, on to then some contract situations. There's actually 3 separate contract situations to talk about in this segment. The first one we're going to talk about is the big one. It's Max Verstappen and George Russell, because the rumours are swirling that Mercedes are talking very closely with Max Verstappen about signing him. And then look, they're not shutting it down. They're saying, Max isn't saying no, Mercedes aren't saying yes, whatever. George Russell's still kind of saying, well, we'll see. And it's kind of a weird situation, isn't it? Because there's not a single person in the world that would say George Russell doesn't deserve to be retained by Mercedes. I mean, how good has George Russell been this season? You cannot do more than he's doing this season to retain your seat. Literally, I don't think there's a single thing he could do differently that he could do better. But just like the same reason that Sainz was kicked out of Ferrari for Hamilton, it's Max Verstappen. He is the best driver in F1 at the moment. He's a world champion. It's a weird situation Mercedes find themselves in. I do think, though, if Max Verstappen comes knocking, I mean, that's why they're talking to him, right? I think you've got to say yes. I think it is up to Max, which is brutal on George, because it seems that Antonelli is signed for next season. Antonelli looks massively promising. He's an up-and-coming driver. But, even if he up and comes, would he get to the point of being George Russell? Because George Russell's already there. It's not like he's 40 years old or he's a bit rubbish in certain ways. George Russell already is that guy. They're gambling on someone who might become that guy. And there's somebody who definitely is that guy to a guy that already is that guy. It's a weird situation, isn't it? It's a really weird situation. But to be honest, I hope if Max does go to Mercedes, I hope George goes to Red Bull and does really well from it. So at least, imagine if George Russell's out of F1 next season. That would be the biggest miscarriage of justice. So, weird situation. What do you think is going to happen here, GB? Hit some spicy predictions.
It's not a surprise, is it? Clearly that talks are ongoing and this can happen. I'm hoping I'm getting my facts straight here, but isn't there a clause in Max Verstappen's Red Bull contract where if he's at the halfway point or more in a season and he's third in the Drivers' Championship, he is able to leave the team, or he's able to leave his contract?
That's what I've said before. That's the rumours, is that he's got a performance clause. He has to be, we don't know the exact details, but the rumours are it's something like if he's in the top 3 in the championship, he's then locked in for another year. But if he's outside the top 3, he's got the ability to sign with someone else.
Again, I don't have the standings in front of me, but I think Russell's like 5 points behind him in the championship with that DNF. So I need to check this. Hold on. He's not far off third place. It's quite spicy. This is lining up with all the talks that's going on as well. So
it's what 9 we've points, mentioned on
podcasts. 9, yeah, there we go. So I mean, you never know. Like it's quite an interesting situation. I think I completely agree with you, and we've discussed this on previous podcast episodes that I don't know what more Russell could do, but equally Max Verstappen is the best driver. I think my question mark would be, and I would say this as well, even in like prime Lewis years and prime Schumacher years and previous generations, that like Max, he's not the perfect package. If you sign a Max Verstappen, does that potentially disrupt your team? That we're seeing. You touched on this, Alex. You were driving this point on a recent episode that are Red Bull where they are now because they've kind of put all their eggs in one basket, and it's you kind of look at Mercedes and you're a bit like, is that the right move? I think it's a real gamble, and I completely agree with you that they're obviously going to keep Antonelli, right? Clearly, but that's such a gamble when George Russell is clearly so far ahead of Antonelli that yes, he's shown so much promise, and I'm a big fan of Antonelli as well, by the way. It's such a gamble to keep him, lose George Russell and replace with Max. Like, that's a big gamble. But equally as well, if you're Toto Wolff, you probably do it, don't you? 4-time world champion, best driver of recent years. Like,
you raise a really interesting point there, though, that is Max going to be toxic to the team? Like, it's not like they're dominating anymore, though. So who knows? But like, honestly, I think the only reason Max is interested is because the rumours are that Mercedes have currently got the best engine for next season. Obviously, that's, very much rumours, but that is the generally accepted consensus at the moment. Who knows if that's right? So he's thinking, look, if 2014 happens again, I want to be a Mercedes, which obviously as Max, you want to do that. And I'm just going to pop my new Mercedes merch on here for this point, because I'm going to enter the rabbit hole, the conspiracy theory rabbit hole. It was a Mercedes that took Max Verstappen out of the Austrian Grand Prix that have almost allowed George Russell to overtake Max Verstappen, which apparently will allow Max Verstappen to leave Red Bull for Mercedes. Thoughts?
This is look at this, is perfect. You line this prop up right for this. You planned this. Beautiful.
Well, I wanted to shoehorn it in somewhere. If you're listening, I've got a Mercedes flat cap. It's a 1950s inspired silver arrow flat cap that they're doing in collaboration with Adidas. So actually, it's not sponsored. I've literally bought it, but I quite like it. It's a bit rogue, isn't it? Like, I don't think I'll go out in it, but I like it because it's different. Also, the inside has got the same like patchwork as the seats had back in the day. I quite like it. Anyway, enough about that.
I think, look, if that's true, then Kimi Antonelli has got the biggest 5 head on the grid to be able to perfectly judge that lockup, to perfectly collect the rear of Max Verstappen at turn 3. I mean, can you imagine? But it is funny. It is quite ironic, isn't it, that we're nearing that stage because of a Mercedes driver completely messing up and crashing into him. So, yeah, let's see. I don't know when we'll kind of find a resolution to these talks, because I'm guessing this will be dragged out for quite a while. I don't know, because wasn't it like around this time last season that we found out about Hamilton to Ferrari, or even earlier? It was like super early, wasn't it? So I don't know when something like this would be announced, to be honest. It's quite an interesting topic. I don't know if you have any kind of nuggets of information on that in terms of when we might even think that.
Not really, but
find out.
What's interesting to me is that it's not being shut down. Like, it's still being talked about. I think if it was a case of Max had an airtight contract, Red Bull are, like we spoke about this before, take Max out of Red Bull are barely even a midfield team, like insane. And they keep putting half decent drivers in there. Yeah, they haven't put a Carlos Sainz or a George Russell in there, or a Charles Leclerc or whatever, or Lando Norris, but still, they put half decent drivers in that would be doing all right in every other team. So Red Bull will be desperate to. He is keeping that $300 million a year organization afloat, or $1 billion, whatever. So they will be desperate to keep him. But the sort of consensus, is that if a driver wants to leave, you let them leave, because you want someone in your team that wants to be in your team, that wants to fight for your team, that will work hard for your team to get every point and every millisecond they can, right? That's what you want. So historically, you tend to let the driver go if they want to go, but Red Bull can't really do that. So that, to me, the fact that all this is still going on says to me that there is some sort of possibility somewhere that this could happen. Otherwise, what they'd re-signed George Russell by now, we'd be moving on with our lives. So, yeah, is it a simple case of a clause in the contract that could allow it, or is it more that Red Bull are going to have to say, sign on the dotted line, yeah, we release you? Is that what they're holding on for? I don't know. I mean, it's all so unknown. I'd always love to be a fly on the wall in these situations, though, to actually see the contract. I'd love to read an actual driver's contract to see the exact bonuses and exact clauses here and there, and it'd be so interesting. But unfortunately, yeah, we'll never know. But yeah, it's definitely one to keep an eye on. It's definitely one to keep an eye on. As I said, if George does get replaced, I really hope he goes to Red Bull or somewhere decent, because if George gets dropped out of F1 after this, that'd be just the biggest joke. And Mercedes will find themselves in a weird situation with, we've heard the phrase of 2 number 1 drivers. They'd have 3 number 1 drivers, which I don't think we've ever had in F1 before. So yeah, we'll see. Silly season. They call it silly season for a reason, don't they?
I think if that would happen, if it was me, I would do exactly what if I was Christian Horner, I would get George Russell and I'd sign like Pet Marty from F2 or something as a youngster to learn alongside him. Going into 26, new regs, new car, new whole design concept. So, and just basically wipe the slate clean and start fresh with what I think George Russell, in my eyes, from what I've seen from him, absolutely can win world championships. I think he's cool-headed enough under pressure to not make crucial mistakes. I think he's proven that on multiple occasions. The question mark is there over his overall raw pace because, well, I mean, even that's harsh because obviously we had Hamilton alongside him at Mercedes where he did very well. So yeah, in a dominant car or in the quickest car, that remains to be seen. But absolutely, if I was Red Bull, I would sign George Russell. I'd bring through a youngster like Pet Marty or yeah, maybe look at Isaac Hadjar if it's going to be 26 car. Maybe Hadjar wants to make that jump, but I would definitely look at those two. But I think we do need to talk about another contract situation from Franco Colapinto because this is an interesting one. And correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, but have we not now reached the period where Colapinto's contract is up and Jack Doohan should be now coming back in?
Well, it was never guaranteed that Jack Doohan would be coming back in, but yes, the rumours were that it was a 5-race contract, which has now ended after Austria. But also, as soon as that happened, they came out and said, oh no, it's not really a set end, whatever. Because obviously, in theory, if he does fantastically well, you would never bid him off after 5 races. But the rumours were that it was a 5-race contract. They've now, I think they came out again and said he's having a race-by-race contract now, which again is a weird thing to come and confirm in public, but fine. There's also rumours that Bottas is considering going to Alpine or whatever, or was in talks. But yeah, again, quite a weird situation. But I mean, I don't know. Do we care? Do we care? Alpine is just fundamentally mid. They're going nowhere. They're all over the place. People are leaving, being fired, and Colapinto cares. Does anyone else care? Do you care, GB?
So apologies to our viewers and listeners that clearly Alex wants a McLaren, a Red Bull and Ferrari podcast and no other teams involved. So I'll apologise on his behalf.
Alpine, if it's Williams, I care. But Alpine, they're just such a shambles. They've got bigger problems than giving your drivers one. But you put Bottas in there, put George Russell in there. It doesn't matter. You've got much bigger problems. The drivers aren't the problem. They're there for work experience. They're not really there for do anything more than that. It's just clapped.
For work experience. I mean, look, I agree, obviously, to an extent that it's clearly a mess. I think what's an interesting one is trying to put myself in Flavio Briatore's shoes and just think, like, what do you do driver-wise from here? Like, I mean, what can they do with the rest of the season, given that we're going to hit the reset button going into 26 anyway, right? They'll already be heavily focusing on the 26 car like they were before now as well. So what do you do? I mean, there's not really any harm in bringing back Doohan, is there? The thing is, Alex, is I would say Colapinto has been, in my eyes, more chaotic than Jack Doohan's first 5 relatively steady races. He did make mistakes, obviously. I'm not trying to shy away from that. But I think Colapinto showed more promise in terms of pace. I don't think... I'm racking my brain trying to think... How many occasions did Jack Doohan even get close to Gasly? And
it was just about the whole time, yeah.
Yeah. And whereas Colapinto, again, he's not been on Gasly's level, but I think there've been 1 or 2 where he has like out-qualified or, I should have my homework here to be able to back that up. But I'm fairly confident in saying that Colapinto has been much, much closer to Gasly. So it's a tricky one because Colapinto, we saw it with that crazy rejoin on Piastri. I don't know what the hell he was doing there. He's clearly quite a chaotic driver. I don't think that's really going to change. I think that's just kind of him. And that was the same last season too. But I think he shows more promise. And I think if I was Flavio Briatore, I probably would keep Colapinto in the seat if there's no kind of better options. I don't see Jack Doohan as a better option. Whether the question is whether it's fair or not, because I don't know the contract situation. Because if there was a kind of a 5 on, 5 off staggered kind of thing going on, and then it's race by race, I don't know whether that's unfair on Jack Doohan. I'm not sure. What would you do if you were Flavio? Just sack the team off. Retire.
Just go home. That's the point. Colapinto, I'd say, has got more promise, yes, than Doohan. But I mean, yeah, get Bottas in or get your neighbour's gran in. I just don't think it matters. I think they've got so much bigger issues that it's just such a weird big talking point. It doesn't really matter. It matters to the drivers, obviously. Like, to get the chance to drive F1 to prove yourself, that matters to them. But to the team, it's just the drivers are the last thing to be worried about right now. It's the shambles of the team is the priority. But anyway, we're going to move on because otherwise we're going to say more controversial things. Also, I'm getting warm, which means GB's getting very warm and his hair transplant's probably about to slide off his head. But
yeah, my hair is currently soaking wet.
Yeah, so let's wrap up. But I do want to talk before we go though about the contracts. There's another one thing I want to talk about, which is another massively long track extension for the track contract for Austria. Red Bull Ring will be racing there now till 2041. We're once again skipping a decade of years. What's that? 16 years? We've spoken about this before. What are they playing at? And I'll tell you exactly what they're playing at. And I'm surprised. I actually Googled this, and I'm surprised that more people are speaking about it. Liberty, in my opinion, are going to sell F1. That is why, in business reasons, and I'm not a director or a shareholder in a big company, but you secure the future of the company to make it worth more to sell it. That's, I believe, what they're doing, because we keep seeing this and it don't really make any sense. You don't need to renew for 16 years. That's insane. But if you want to sell, you do want to do that, because then in I don't know how long it might be, a year, 2 year, 3 years time, when most of the tracks on the calendar have got 10-year plus contracts, to an investor, you go, well, this is the most secure business I've ever seen in my life. Everyone's already signed up forever. That's what I think. I don't know. I genuinely Googled like Liberty Media and looking at news and stuff. I'm surprised not more people are saying this is possibly why, because it maybe makes sense for one or two to be extended massively if for some reason the promoter was desperate for it, whatever. But it's the trend now. And I think Liberty Media have just bought MotoGP. Is that the new project? Are we going to see them sell F1 in the near future? And what the hell will that mean for F1? I've got no idea. That'd be a massive talking point and it probably needs its own episode. But
you'll be absolutely frothing for that MotoGP Drive to Survive when they get involved.
Yeah, I will. No, wait, not Drive to Survive. No. And MotoGP have already got their own Drive to Survive, but I am frothing to see what they do. It's called, I can't remember what it's called, but they have actually got their own one. But I am excited to see what they do with MotoGP, but that's not the point. Go on, what do you think about these massively long contracts?
Yeah, what's quite funny is that we do you remember the Miami episode where we touched on exactly this, and I was saying before that Grand Prix weekend, we're all like, bin Miami, no one cares, hate the track, vibe and atmosphere, whatever. And I really didn't do anything for me. And then we had a banger race, or a good race at least. I enjoyed it. And then we had just all the the Lego car shenanigans and everything. It was just a fun weekend. I really enjoyed it. And then they announced that contract extension. I think they announced it beforehand, right? And then we got a really good race, and it kind of then changes your outlook. That's exactly how I feel now. I've like Austria. Like I said, I've always been a bit like, nah, do I really care? It's always been a pretty dead race in previous years, and yet we just saw cars being able to follow and DRS being stronger than dirty air. So automatically cars can stay close. We can see overtakes. That gives people, clearly that would give a slower car in theory that's not too far off the car in front a chance of staying with them. I quite like it. I'm glad that Austria is here to stay, but I don't know about the long contracts. Fernando Alonso, Alex, he'll have his 60th birthday the month after that Grand Prix.
No
60.
way.
6-0.
And he'll still be here as well. And he'll still be driving for Aston Martin. Stroll will still be here as well.
He'll be an 18-time world champion by then. It's a bit crazy, isn't it? And I mean, you make a good point on the investor side. I hadn't thought about the Liberty Media selling F1 side of things at all. So it's quite an interesting take.
I suppose I'm just thinking on the spot here. Maybe another reason for it could be that they're about to sign a massively long contract with, an unpopular track like Saudi Arabia or something. They're pushing to be on the calendar because they obviously want to guarantee their spot because it's not guaranteed. So to soften that, they go, we also signed Austria for ages, guys, because Austria is a more popular one. It's a better track. But if they're going to start signing tracks that aren't popular to very long contracts, maybe it's to soften the blow of that. And it just doesn't really make sense to me. I just don't see a reason from I don't see a reason from the track side. It kind of makes sense, right? Because F1 is valuable to them. It kind of makes sense. I just don't see from F1's point of view, the stock is already really high. It's in demand. There's loads of tracks that want a space on the calendar. just don't see why you would tie yourself into this long a contract. It just doesn't.
I
make
agree.
any sense to me.
I agree, but also as well, I was literally going to mention this when you brought up Saudi in a other refreshing way. I wouldn't call Austria like a Monza or a Silverstone, but I like that it's just a normal track. It's not a street circuit.
Yeah.
We've got our gravel traps. It's a traditional circuit, and to be honest, the more of those we get on the calendar, me personally, I'm happy with. So yeah, I agree, and I'll be the same with this for any track. Even if it was Silverstone announced to like 2041, or Silverstone is my favorite race and circuit to watch. So even with that, I'd be thinking like, "Cool, that's who knows what's going to happen in 16 years." Like that is a lot of commitment. So
would you? Yeah. Mortgages are obviously a little bit different because a mortgage you can obviously move house, you can whatever. Would you sign a contract that says, though, you've got to live in the same house for 16 years, or you've got to keep the same car for 16 years? Would you sign either of those contracts? Because I wouldn't.
No.
No, because 16 years is an outrageous amount of time. Okay, we're both in our just about early 30s. So, like, to us, that's a good chunk of our lives. But, like, it's just too long a time. What's going to happen in 16 years? Nobody knows. We'll probably have... genuinely probably about 3 or 4 massive rules overhauls in F1 in that time. Are we going to be purely electric by then? We've got no idea. Is that going to completely change what the demand for the tracks? Where's the fans going to be? Is it going to become more of an Asian sport by then? Are we going to be filled with half Asian drivers, and then suddenly we're tied to Europe forever? It's just insane. It's too long, and the only reason that makes sense is corporate reasons. If you're a track and you want to guarantee the future of your track, if you're worried financially, well, they actually have to pay for F1, but it keeps you on the calendar. Or if you're F1 and you're looking to sell or something like that, like it's just I don't know. I don't like it.
I'll tell you what though. If you offered me a 16-year mortgage in a lovely location in a massive house, I would say yes. So I'd like to use that analogy to kind of Austria's I consider it to be a nice circuit, and especially with this Grand Prix weekend. Like I said, I had fun, I enjoyed it. So I don't think when that was announced, I wasn't annoyed as I was when Miami was announced, and I think there was probably quite a bit more social media backlash as well when that was announced. So. Yeah, ultimately, I agree. I think we both agree on the same point. But I am also glad to see a more traditional circuit retained, and I hope we see this trend. Well, it's not a trend, is it? Because Miami, it's Miami.
I think there was another one. I can't remember what it was. I'm pretty sure there was another track they signed for a very long time as well. I could be wrong on this. I feel like it's the third one they've done. But fundamentally, I do agree with you. Of the tracks aside, Austria is a good one. If you're going to start signing some very long contracts, maybe we'll get another announcement next week for Silverstone. And to me, if we get another one that gets announced of a similar duration, there's a reason for that. There's something going on. They've never done it before. They've never needed to do it before. The fact they're doing it now, there's a reason. To me, maybe that Liberty Media is selling F1. We'll see. But anyway, guys, that's it from us this week. Me and GB need to go and switch our aircons back on and leave our offices because it's very warm at the moment in the UK. And I think GB's got to go and stream. So best of luck to you, GB, in your very hot office. You've now got to go and sit in a rig and sweat away you will.
Thanks, mate.
I hope you're going to have fun on that one. But thanks for watching today, guys. Watching or listening. We do appreciate you. Apologies for the no episode last week. I don't know. We kind of, I'm not going to say we're reinventing things here, but we just tweaking things. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode rather than just pointlessly speak about every topic in F1. We're maybe going to make it a bit more about the topics we've actually got something to say about. You know me, I love a controversial talking point. So if we've got something to say, we'll say it. Maybe we will even move away from weekly, make it bi-weekly, or make it, whenever we've got something to say. So some weeks it might be 2, whatever. I don't know. We're just kind of evolving really with the podcast. But this is actually our 20th podcast, though, by the way. We have done 20 now. And that probably is in about 22 or 23 weeks because we only had 1 or 2 weeks off. So we're certainly not about to give up on it. Don't worry about that. But we're just kind of reconsidering, but it'll be broadly the same. Anyway, I'm waffling now, guys. We need to go turn the aircon on. Thank you for listening or watching today. Don't forget to drop a follow if you haven't already, and we'll catch you probably next week to talk about the British Grand Prix and my stag do, which is this weekend, and GB is going to be there, so we may have some sore heads the next time you speak to us. Catch you then, guys.